looked at this, you've talked to us about what you're thinking about, so I think that's great. But what I'm asking the board now, you've had a little time to kind of sit on this. Is there anything that you would want to comment on now that staff, we want them to include in as they propose that red line? Because I think that's a really good avenue. And if there isn't right this moment, I think it would be appropriate if any ideas came in to Carla or in the next 2 weeks. Does that make sense? From board members on any revisions, those could be considered, and then just do it as the red line going out. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So as you're kind of looking through, and if any ideas pop up on these right now, maybe to go ahead and mention those to flag, but to get anything to Carla within 2 weeks of any revisions you might like to make. And then Carla, just under your the new timing, when are we posting for public comment these comments? When does it go out, and then when are the comments due in publicly? To again, you had tried to establish kind of a, in advance of our meeting, we're going to have this out and have public comment received by, and I think just again to get everybody on the same page of what that looks like, because I think resolutions are included in that setup you had. So if you could articulate that for everybody, that'd be great.
So since the December meeting, I have made some modifications to our Board of Agriculture webpage. And under each meeting date now, it does already show when public comments are due for that upcoming meeting. So public comment for the June meeting will be due by May 27th. And so we will plan to post resolutions out for public comment around April 15th. So that will, a little probably after that, shortly after April 15th. I don't have an exact date, sorry. But we want to give the public at least, 3 to 4 weeks to be able to make comment.
Good.
But I think by posting when the public comment is due for each upcoming meeting, I think will allow people time to make their comments and plan to make their comments. So we will plan to get the red line resolutions posted by mid-April, mid to late April. I don't have an exact date.
So did our, like within 2 weeks to come into you with any comments by us work for you?
Yep.
Okay. So if anybody, has something that jumps out at them as far as potential revisions in the others we didn't just pass, you can say it now, or again, just provide comments to Carla in 2 weeks. Any burning issues? I don't see any burning issues. Director Allen, do you have any burning issues on that piece, on any of them proposed? Okay, great. Okay, so on current resolutions, we're there. There has been some discussion in light of the multiple comments that have been raised in regards to a subject, and it's, I'll say similar, but it's a before versus after. We ended up passing a resolution on ag overtime at our last meeting, kind of after the fact, because the legislation had passed. There's active discussion coming on the Ag Labor Board right now. So the question is, are we interested in providing some ideas, perspectives, backgrounds on even a position as a board? And if we did the position, it's not going to be embraced by, because it would be maybe in the form of a letter going to the governor from this board to say, hey, we, here are some of our concerns that we would really want to be considered, and the implications and impact of this legislation on agriculture. We heard a lot of things that I think we could put those together fairly concisely and easily, that are even on the public record now too, through the legislature. So that I'm putting that out because there has been some inquiry internally within the board of, can we do something? So I'm going to throw that out there, but we would need to, if we want to look at impacts, need to, work on this fairly quickly. And then again, with the public meeting laws, how we do that in an appropriate fashion, I want to make sure is right. So am I on the wrong track? Am I on the right track?
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I move this board, Ty Cleaver for the record, I move this board draft a letter to Governor Kotek articulating the position of this board and in translating the concerns that we heard at our open session.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Ellie Norris for the record. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Okay, we'll get to the how. This is the what we want to do, and the how may be difficult too. But Director Hansen, I don't want to put you in a difficult position, but I also want, I think there's real earnest interest in doing something here. So
I was going to ask Jonathan to come forward to help brainstorm a little bit. I'm thinking that maybe we can work together. And well, Carla, how can we share a letter draft, get comments back, and be in line with the public meeting law? It's become a little more challenging. Or do we need to get a draft circulated and then have a special meeting for the board to approve it?
I don't know that we've crossed that bridge with the new public meeting laws. Historically, when the board has requested an action item like this, the discussion or the topic of the letter has been discussed in the form like we are here today. And then I think the ODA has typically drafted the letter with the chair, and the chair then just signs off on it. So it would still be just the one interaction with the chair, since the board has made a motion and will vote here in a minute to move forward with the letter. So I think the discussion happens now, and the draft will be shared with the chair, and you can sign off on it on behalf of the board.
okay, thank you. Not as clear as how to yet, but getting close. But Director Lopez, you had a comment.
Yeah, Miguel Lopez for the record. I think as part of the letter, should include, yes, every single board member on that letter as well, just to reflect that we are doing this in the interest of Oregon as a whole.
I think anything coming from the board definitely is every member, and we do have that is a voting member.
Stacy Simonich for the record. I'll abstain from the writing of the letter.
Yeah, and I think Lisa has to as well. So it would be for every voting member of the board. But on behalf, as chairman, I could say on behalf of every voting member of the board, and if you want to be named, I can do that. But I think the key here is, from what I'm hearing from Carla, and I'm seeing a lot of nods, but Director Allen, you're remote, so I'm not seeing a nod, maybe because I wasn't watching at the right time. I mean, are we on the right track here? Okay, I see the nod. Okay, and I'm getting...
There's my nod.
I just heard your nod too. Thank you. And so, we have a quorum. We have authority to move forward on a letter directed to the governor in regards to implications. But Jonathan, you're up here, and give us some words of wisdom as appropriate, because of course it's the department and but it's the board's decision.
Yeah, through the chair, I think, John Sando, I think that like when we're talking about this, it's really kind of the perspective of what we heard and what of the board as well, but not necessarily like a position on the bill. Or is that kind of what the request was around a position on the bill itself?
Let's talk about that a minute. I think there are some that feel that we should take a position on the bill, but has that ever been done by the Board of Agriculture?
It's one of my concerns in terms of that is one of the things I'm trying to figure. I don't know how to navigate that as the public officials. And so I think we could articulate the concerns around the concepts and what you heard. And part of my reason of thinking going through the governor instead of to the bill directly.
Actually, we could urge the governor that she consider opposition for these reasons. As her Board of Ag. And if we don't want to do the opposition, that's fine, and we can just articulate with all the concerns, which will probably read into this similar focus. Director Allen, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Chad Allen for the record. You know, I think that there's certain times, and we've seen some in the past, that it would be very critical that we have some sort of pathway to create some advising to the governor's office on particular issues that are going through their building. And I know we've sort of wrestled around with the best and most appropriate way of doing that. We've all been appointed by the governor for our expertise in different areas. And I think we should not hesitate or be fearful of doing our advising to the governor's office. I think we can do this in a way that gets the point very clear on what our thoughts are on the particular bill, but you know, giving that to the governor's office, you know, we're not out there advocating with senators and representatives on any particular bill, but we have to figure out how we can communicate with the governor's office, advising them on certain things that we know are going to be heavily negative on all sectors of agriculture.
Okay, I appreciate those comments. So with that, if we were to write a letter with the motion, just make sure I've got this right. The letter would articulate our concerns and ask her to consider opposition. I'm just wanting to say if we should ask her to consider opposing the bill with an articulation of all the reasons and the ramifications for agriculture. The other option is to say, is just not to say opposition, I guess. Jonathan, do you have any other?
So I think one, you know, time to think through it will be helpful, but two, I think, you know, again, trying to with those terms of arts of like, you know, kind of taking a position on a bill itself, but then balancing kind of that discussion point right around the piece of legislation to the governor. I think there's a way to like kind of articulate what you're trying to get at without like taking a direct or a request to take a direct stance, either by the board or you know, by herself. So I think, you know, there's a way to accomplish kind of what the desire is here.
Okay. Ty, though?
Ty Cleaver for the record. What if the letter said, on behalf of my fellow board members, da 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 da, and then you signed it? And if we couched it more as expressing our concerns about this?
And not opposition to the bill, but just concerns? Because yeah, Ellie, you're up next, and then.
Ellie Norris for the record. I like how Chad worded it, and I like the point he made of we have been appointed by the governor to advise and assess issues and bring it to your knowledge. I think that is a very a powerful way to start our point and maybe not use opposition, but we are here for her advisory. And we advise her.
For the huge implications
Yes.
that agriculture. Chad, was that where you were going? Chad, you might be on mute. Chad, we can't hear you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm kind of losing it now.
Okay, so the question is that we wouldn't use the word opposition, but to clearly articulate our deep concerns about the implications of agriculture should this board of or labor board be formed, and dot 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 dot. And we can talk about a few of those before we close, so we can help populate that. But it wouldn't use the word opposition. I think either we go for it and just say it out loud, or we don't. And I appreciate both perspectives because, we serve at the pleasure, we honor the governor, but it is our job, I think, to stand up and say, this is a biggie. So are you okay not using the word opposition?
I'm perfectly fine with using the word opposition, I guess.
That's what I thought.
But I think it goes with, yeah, I mean, in these particular situations, I think it's very important to advise the governor's office in the direction that's best for agriculture in the state. And so if that requires using a stronger word than another, I don't think that these particular things that we need to be walking on glass and these kinds of things, being concerned of different stuff. I mean, I strongly feel that we've been appointed for advising, and then we should not be afraid of advising in these circumstances. I don't believe that this is a bill that went forward or an agenda item of the governor's office like we've seen some maybe in the past. And so if everybody was comfortable with it, I would be fine with it, and I would be fine with the other too. But I know these are sort of some uncharted areas, I guess, since I've been on the board and trying to figure out, how we do, how we have that communication with the governor's office. And so,
Let me try this as a potential middle ground to, state the obvious that, we're appointed by you to advise you and da 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 da. And should we today have had the opportunity as individuals to vote for or against, we would be dramatically opposed to this legislation. We want you to take the following into this consideration. So it's not saying the department, it's not saying, and maybe I'm parsing too many things, and that's what I do sometimes to find compromise, but fine on true opposition. True opposition. I'm actually fine on opposition if we feel we can. Ellie?
I'm fine with opposition as long as we do it since the uncharted territory. I want to make sure we do it properly.
Right.
And we don't cross any lines. So that's
Okay.
that's my one concern.
Good. And I think all of us would share that concern.
Chairman Miguel Lopez for the record. I think what Chad initially started with, what Board Member Miller, Allen started with, made a lot of sense. I think we are getting a little bit into the weeds with specifics, with the word opposition in particular. I think there's an opportunity for us to critique, praise this whole thing in a positive way that really gets our point across with verbiage that is clear, concise, to the point, that does take into consideration all of our different agricultural sectors represented here at this table. We have everybody across the state. And then also beyond that, I do feel that we have a great opportunity to, not just to the governor, but by doing this, it also lets our legislative bodies know that, we are seeing something from within the group of people that are on this board. And maybe we will consider this a little bit more before we go through and try to make these changes happen.
Okay. All right. Director Orem, I haven't heard from you just on
Eric Orem, for the record. Yes, I'll comment. I believe we are on the right track, and I do believe that we can be opposed, and we can write a very respectful letter stating the facts of how it will affect agriculture, or how it can affect agriculture. I don't think we even need to name the bill, because if it doesn't pass this year, there will be some other form of it next year. And so just stating that this is how agriculture feels about it. And I do agree with Chad, Director Allen, that it is our job to advise, and I think we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't. But again, doing it in the right way. So.
Okay. I think we can go through that. What I would suggest is let's take a vote on that before we spend the time on key points, and again, we could be pretty brief on what that is. And I think, again, taking a look at things and what we heard a lot from the constituencies on Wednesday afternoon would be very helpful to pull from too. So I will ask for a motion, and all in favor of moving forward to send a letter to the governor with our deep concerns, including, if appropriate, using the word opposition, signify by saying aye.
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 And that's unanimous, so we'll, for the record. Okay, well, thank you. So now some of the meat of it, and I'm kind of wrapped up pretty heavily in this too, so I can put some things down, but next steps. So if we look at, the issues of singling agriculture out when no other industry is having to deal with this sort of thing, dealing with just the overall impacts of agriculture, what we're facing as agriculture, and this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, the duplicative nature of it. We've got BOLI, we've got OSHA, we've got everybody else that regulates us, and this is adding another layer. There's a bunch of key points that I think make a whole lot of sense, that makes sense coming from us. But anything else like that you heard in particular will highlight, but we could take a look at what folks said to us on Wednesday night, and anything else we've heard.
Ty Cleaver, for the record, I think we can't reiterate enough, why is this one industry getting singled out?
Okay. Any other ideas? Because we can, yeah, okay. All right. So I think so now how do we do? So is it something that makes sense for me to work with whoever on staff, and if it's not appropriate on staff, but we need to answer that how to approach appropriately. You guys work on the how to. I can work on a draft, but I would like, just from a proper approach, include Jonathan, if that's possible, in what that is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jonathan will help.
Okay, and I can send some draft comments and things, and we could get that together. And then the how we, is that we just act on it and go for it? Or do we send it out and have a special meeting, which I'm fine to do?
Chair Miller Miguel Lopez, for the record. Yeah, I feel like time is of the essence for us on this one. If we are to get it in front of the correct bodies to read ahead of anything that might happen.
Okay, so basically authority to act, to just do it. Just do it. Not to claim Nike. No, anyway. Okay. All right. We will do it, and we will try to get that out within the next week or two at the most. That makes sense?
Are you happy with?
Yeah, I think, Thank you. I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate the thoughtfulness. And I do think that we can find some ways to word this that
Makes sense.
we can weave it and send a very, very strong message.
Great. Good.
Do we need a cleaner motion than what we have?
We might do a second motion that you're giving authority to act on the content of the letter. Okay.
Okay, so let's go.
Oh, okay. We're okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So authority to act. Do we need a motion for the authority to act? No. Okay. Great. Okay. Good deal. Got our marching orders amongst other things. So, okay. All right. So that being done, my question would be for our board report, because we heard solar afterwards.
I guess that was my question, to think about, is there anything you want to do in terms of thinking about board comments on the solar
Solar, yeah.
rules rather than the board report
Cool.
piece of it?
Actually, that's even better. Okay. Is there interest from the board on providing any comments for the record for the April 11th deadline to in regards to the solar siting?
Eric Orm for the record. I would like to see some kind of letter or something from the board, but without seeing the proposed rules, written rules, I can't comment on what that should be. So, and I would assume they are accessible, so that you can comment on them. So I guess that would be work in progress.
Yeah, and that was my mystery because the due date, but then, help
Can I
me.
help you?
Yeah, help me. Help us, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. So the rules have been out for public comment. Lindsay Ing has done a review of them. She sent me a message and said she would be willing to work with Director Orem around some type of letter for comment and maybe help frame that based on what she has learned.
Okay. So that's great. So I do think it would make sense that we do have a motion that we would submit comments on the solar siting based and give authority to act to Director Orem and with the background that Lindsay is providing on the rulemaking on behalf of the board.
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Ellie Norris for the record, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ty, seconded by Ellie. Any further discussion? Chad, just making sure since you're remote, is that okay? Okay,
Yes.
see that head nod. I love it. Okay, good deal. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Great, great. And again, protocol, I'm also okay that on behalf of the board, Eric sends, but if it needs to be under my signature as chair, that's absolutely fine because I'm fully in favor of weighing in. Yeah.
You should both sign.
Yeah, whatever makes sense for that. So, okay. Now, we have our next meeting scheduled for June 4th through 6th in LeGrand. And it's going to be a busy time in LeGrand. I don't think we realized how busy it was going to be. And so the hotel space is kind of crazy. And so we're scrambling for hotel space, but we're going to make it happen in LeGrand no matter what. And I think it's a livestock show, rodeo, and
Stock show weekend.
the whole stock show's happening. Yeah, so so we might actually take in a rodeo while we're there. So sorry, Ellie. You know, blueberries, it could stay cold forever and you start harvesting a week later.
If it is a later season, then I will be there. But if it's an early spring, I will not, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, we knew that when we set this date, so sorry about that. Director Lopez. Okay. Well, hey, this has been a very impactful, great meeting. Appreciate the participation, and now that we're hoping that maybe by the next meeting we may have another director appointed. So then we'll be full-fledged there. So we don't have to keep Brian's name on the list, even though we actually would love to have Brian. But anyway, and I think that our new board member who couldn't make it because he had a conflict, Kirk Mogg, is going to be able to be at our next meeting too. So we should be action-packed and full of fun. So great. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, meeting adjourned.